All right, so for these section of problems, we're talking about probability, and this is and or probabilities. So the last set of videos I did talked about Venn diagrams, and we can do probability with that. But sometimes we're not given a scenario, like we're not given like what A is. Like in some of the videos I did, I think I did football and basketball. Like these students like football, these students like football and basketball, these students like neither. And sometimes you're just given the data. So, like in number 8, like I wrote down here, you're just given event A and event B. Now, you could make something up if you want to, like if you really wanted to say, well, I'm going to make event A, I like cheese, and event B, I like ice cream, or whatever you want. So, but sometimes you're not given the scenario. All you're given is the data. Now, there is a formula, quote unquote, that we've learned when we're given just the data that we use to figure this out. Okay? So, the probability of event A plus the probability of event B, okay, minus, as I like to call it, the overlap, which is the probability of event A and B both happening, equals the probability of event A or B. Because as we talked about, the word or in probability means to add. So the probability of event A or B happening is that we add them, A plus B, event A plus event B, but there's overlap, like with the Venn diagram. So, and we don't want to count those students twice, so we subtract one of the overlaps that occur. Okay, so that might be a little bit too much. Like, well, just get to the math. What are you thinking? So let's do that. All right, so it tells me the probability of event A. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in the information we know, and then just like algebra, find the information we don't know. So the probability of event A is right here. Right, is 47%. But when I do the math, let's go ahead and write it as a decimal. So I'm going to put 0.47. Okay. Probability of event B is right here, and that is 21%, or the way we're going to write it is 0.21. Okay. Minus the probability of event A and B. That's right there. We don't know it. So I'm going to write Q. I'm going to call this Q. Right? I can make it any variable I want. X, Y, Z. I'm going to make it Q just because I want to. Equals PA or B. It tells me right here. Oh, and it's already as a decimal for me. Perfect. 0.25. So 0.25. All right. So I know everything except the probability of A and B. All right. So going back to our basic algebra days, we need to combine like terms and then get the variable by itself. So let's add these together because they're both decimals or both numbers. So we can add them together. 0.47 plus 0.21 is going to give me 0.68. So minus Q equals 0.25. Okay. Moving on. I'm trying to decide what color. Orange. Great. All right. So the 0.68 and 0.25 are like terms, but on different sides of the equation. So I need to do inverse operations. And my goal is to get Q, the variable, by itself. So I'm going to move the 0.68 over here. So minus 0.68. Okay. So the 0.68s cancel on the left, and I'm left with negative Q equals, I'm going to have to rearrange it here because we always do big minus small. So minus 0.25 gives me 3, 4, so 0.43. And it's going to be negative 0.43. Okay. Now, here's a little trick. Again, this is the long way to do it. I'll show you both ways. So the long way to do it is, okay, I have negative Q equals negative 0.43. Now, can I ever in real life have a negative probability? I have a negative 5% chance of winning the lottery. That's what it feels like sometimes. But no, you can never have a negative probability. So you can't just say, oh, it's changed to positive. You have to, as it mathematically makes sense, and can you actually track where the negatives comes from? So in this case, another thing I can't have is a negative exponent. I can't end my answer with a negative exponent. A negative variable. So I have a negative Q. The way I get rid of negative Q, the long way, is I divide by negative 1 on both sides. Now dividing by negative 1, again, there's an invisible 1 in front of Q. Negative 1 divided by negative 1. So just like when you multiply two negatives, it becomes positive. When you divide two negatives, it becomes positive. So negative 1 divided by negative 1 is positive 1, or just positive Q, equals, and then negative 0.43 divided by negative 1 becomes positive 0.43. Okay? So, and again, what does Q stand for? Q stands for A or P, A, and B. So the probability of event A and B happening is 0.43. Okay? So make sure you change percentages to decimals whenever you have those. Decimals are much easier to work with, as well as make sure that you combine like terms, and if you ever have a negative with the variable, make sure you get rid of it. Just divide it by -1. The simplest way to do it. So this was kind of an explanation. I'll do one more problem, but this time I'll do fractions next. So make sure you find that video. It's going to be exciting.